Hey folks, this is Abel James, and thanks so much for joining us on Fat Burning Man, where we help you look, feel, and perform at your best. Today, 1 out of 5 people suffer from autoimmune conditions. This is a staggering statistic, but we're beginning to learn why this is such a problem. Whether we like it or not, the food we eat literally changes our genetic makeup. Eating the wrong food for you can turn disease-promoting genes on. As my friend Bub says, Count Chocula is grim. The good news is that when you get on the right plan, clean up your act, many serious conditions can actually be reversed. And we're here today with a remarkable woman who is living proof of that, Dr. Terry Wahls. Dr. Wahls teaches others how to heal conditions commonly considered to be untreatable with cutting-edge science and a healthy dollop of good old common sense. Now, before we get to the interview, I want to share a quick story that just came in from a man named Eric, and I love this one. It totally made my day. He says, I was 42 years old. It was December 2016, and I woke up gasping and unable to breathe. I had aspirated in my sleep, and the stomach acid that made its way into my trachea was causing spasms. 2 weeks later, it happened again. I was snoring so bad that I had to use a CPAP machine to keep my wife from going insane. I was wearing size 38 jeans that were snug. I was 43% body fat. My clothes consisted mostly of black to conceal how fat I was. I started Google searching for natural cures because I didn't want to take medicine. And the list goes on and on and on. I officially started the Wild Diet on March 1st, 2016. Even with splurge meals and splurge weekends, I still found myself losing weight and feeling great. I had lost 30 pounds doing the diet halfway without even exercising, and I didn't need the CPAP machine anymore. My shoulder and knees no longer hurt. I knew getting these results, it was time to commit. I went all in. Since I started, I have lost 70 pounds. I am now wearing 28 by 32 jeans, and my body fat is down to 15%. I have given away my entire wardrobe because nothing even came close to fitting anymore. My wife can't believe that I no longer own a single stitch of black clothing. Now I'm working on my final badge of fitness, my six-pack. It's more than just looks, though. I feel great. I have no more aches and pains. I have more confidence. I know that I'm healthy now, truly healthy, and I will be for the rest of my life. Now, because of how I look, people ask me how I did it, and I tell them. Many of my coworkers have bought the book and started the Wild Diet. I tell my patients, get your book and stop coming to get stents put in. Eric, thank you so much for sharing your story. It's you get it. You know, when I read things like that, I just feel my heart totally open up because I was on the end of that too with the fat pants that I could barely fit in. You know, when you get to the other side of that and you experience that energy, you're capable of so much more than you ever thought possible. And I can tell that you're starting to taste that. And for anyone who's listening, I hope you pick up on the excitement that goes along with that sort of experience, because I'm reliving it a little bit right now. But if you know someone who might be struggling with their weight or their health right now, then please just help us spread the word about real food and the Wild Diet. Whether you just mention my free website, fatburningman.com, or send them to this Fat Burning Man podcast on iTunes or YouTube or Stitcher or another app that you're listening on right now, just take a quick second and share one of your favorite episodes with them. You can always get our free programs, sign up for free at fatburningman.com from any device. But if you'd like proven results with the best of what we've got all in one place, check out the Wild 30-day fat loss system. In this plan, we share 30 days of foodie-friendly meals that are designed to help you drop fat with real food. Plus, you'll get a bonus 30-day meal plan, quick start guide, motivation journal to track your progress, and much more. All you have to do to get your listener discount is type in this special little link to your phone, tablet, or browser, and that's fatburningman.com/30 days. That's the number 30, DAYS. That's fatburningman.com/30 days. Just type that right in, and we'll see you there. All right, on to the show with Dr. Terry Wahls. You're about to learn why 1 out of 5 people today have autoimmune conditions, how Dr. Wahls treated multiple sclerosis and defied the diagnoses of doctors who said she would never walk again, an easy-to-make delicious dessert that does wonders for your gut, gene expression, bone health, brain health, and also reduces menstrual cramps, and the surprising thing gut samples tell us about people who eat a meat-only diet. All right, let's go hang out with Dr. Wahls. All right, folks, our friend and returning guest, Dr. Terry Wahls, is a functional medicine practitioner, clinical researcher, and clinical professor of medicine at the University of Iowa. Though she is widely respected as a leader at the forefront of functional medicine and health, what sets Dr. Wahls apart is her experience using nutrition and lifestyle interventions to treat progressive health problems, to heal her own multiple sclerosis and later that of others. Within a year of beginning her Wahls Protocol, Dr. Wahls went from being bound to a zero-gravity wheelchair to completing an 18-mile bike tour without any disease-modifying drugs or surgery. Dr. Wahls, it's an honor to have you back on the show. Thanks again.
Hey, great. I'm so glad to be here with you.
Awesome. So let's just start right here because this statistic is so staggering to me. 20% of us now struggle with autoimmune conditions of one kind or another. 1 out of 5. Can you help us explain that a little bit? Because that's not normal historically.
Oh, God, no, absolutely not. So we certainly understand that autoimmunity, which is the attack of my immune cells on me, destroying me, it's an interaction of the genes that you have, and this very complicated interaction with a lifetime of diet, a lifetime of physical activity, a lifetime of other environmental exposures that all add up to what disease processes you're going to have. The DNA that we've been having for hundreds, thousands of generations, that was working out fine, but our environment changed, and that's where the biggest problem is. And I think that's where our biggest leverage point is, addressing the environment. And so that's why I've focused my clinical efforts and where I focused our clinical research with, really very nice results.
Yeah, and maybe you felt this yourself. A lot of people, when they start to lose their health, they kind of throw up their hands or they listen to their doctor like, this is the way it is, right?
And this is what I was taught in medical school was the health you have is from the DNA that you've got. And so what you just do is go prescribe drugs. And, in the 70s, we were doing the gene sequencing. We were so excited that we'd now have the keys to figuring out chronic disease. But then we realized that most of the genes we're discovering that would say were linked to MS. First it was 50, then grew up. Now it's finally about 300 we found. But the vast majority of people with any of those genes don't get MS. It maybe increases your risk 1%.
Yeah.
So then we're like,
right,
something else is going on.
Yeah.
And that's what's been so exciting for us to do in the last decade is to really understand how the food we eat turns genes on and off.
Right.
And can turn on these disease-promoting genes or turn them off. So will the heavy metals, leads, plastics, and other pollutants we're exposed to. So will physical activity levels. So will my social interactions, my resilience factors, my spirituality. All of that is continuously shaping my genes.
Yeah.
So that's why the stuff you and I do is so incredibly powerful.
Yeah. And
I'd say the really exciting thing is the basic scientists, now that they're beginning to see these mechanisms, people are getting really interested and excited about researching the kind of researchers that I'm doing in my lab and other labs around the country that are more into this diet and lifestyle program.
Absolutely. And it's getting more dire every day, it seems.
Oh,
right?
my God.
I've known a lot of people outside of we have a lot of mutual friends. We've been in the Ancestral health community for a long time now, or a few years now. But there are people outside of that sphere of influence, or that bubble, if you want to call it that, who didn't get the memo about eating the right way, living the right way, which a lot of people did about 3 to 5 years ago. It started to really get popular, and you can tell the people who started eating the right way, living the right way, are thriving right now. And meanwhile, there are a lot of people, like I was saying, outside of that sphere who are coming down with autoimmune conditions, and they're like, this is just what my doctor said, my life is different now, and this is who I am. And I'm like, but no!
It doesn't have to be,
Yeah. What do you have to say to people who might be in that position?
Well, this is a big issue that I had in the VA when I was in my clinical practice there was we had an intro class where I would tell my story. I had those great pictures before and after, and I'd talk about functional medicine and the mechanisms of why healing occurs. And they say, okay, we've got this great program. You can come work with me 100% for 100 days, gluten-free, dairy-free, lots of vegetables. If you can't quite do that, but you want to work on improving your diet, you can work individually with a dietitian, or you could say, nope, I'm not interested. It's not the right time for me to think about these things, and just keep doing your medications with your primary care doc. You know, and when I first started having those classes, I would say about half the folks would come forward and work either with a dietitian or with the group, and half would say, oh, no, that's too hard. But, you know, I left last year in December when I ran my last class. We had, I'd say easily 90% of the people who came to the introductory class say, I get it. I want to do this. And the vast majority came into the group class. We had a few folks who said, you know, I really want to do this individually. And that was fine. So my perception is that over time, at least as I'm talking to the public, the groups, the awareness and acceptance and interest is growing.
Yeah.
You know, we had a list. So even to get people into my introductory lecture, the demand was so great, people were waiting 9 months.
Wow.
So public awareness is growing. I think clinician awareness is growing. But we have a huge epidemic. And, you know, that's part of why I think what you are doing is so incredibly powerful by having this information out there, putting it on the net, increasing social awareness through our social media. So this is one of the really great things that I say is why healing is happening at a rapid scale, not because of the changes that in medical practice, but because of the social media where people can tell, hey, I'm getting better using these ancestral health principles.
Right. It works. It really does.
It works. It does really good things.
Yeah.
Now, but I mean, I'll recognize you may be so ill, and because ancestral health principles was not enough to get me better because I was so desperately ill. We needed a much more intensive program. But, you know, if I can come back from being unable to sit up, unable to sit in a regular chair, struggling to walk 10 feet, having terrible brain fog, horrific levels of pain, and I had this dramatic turnaround in my life with just a year of the Wahls Protocol. Yeah. That offers hope to so many people with so many different disease processes. Right. You know, that's probably why that TED Talk has, you know, like 2.8 million views now, because it's such a powerful story. It is.
And if you haven't seen it, Dr. Wahls has been on the show before. I suggest that you go and check that interview out, but also her TED Talk. And there are, of course, always links at fatburningman.com to those things as well. But your TED Talk was fantastic. And I think a lot of people have trouble believing that you can truly heal yourself with food, or by even more accurately, just subtracting foods.
Yeah.
Right.
So you got to get rid of the harmful stuff, and then we really want to give you some guidance as to how to fill up with the good stuff. You know, it's interesting, Abel. My physician here at the university had many people contact him to say that he was incompetent. I clearly couldn't have had MS, and you know, that's sort of crazy. So he would say, you know, I was so glad that I told people that I was being cared for at the Cleveland Clinic because they have the international reputation for MS.
Interesting.
And probably the other thing that's now really important, so I'll tell people, okay, so let's say maybe my doctor somehow at the Cleveland Clinic at the University of Iowa were wrong. I didn't really have MS. But I've had my clinical trials where we've had people come in with progressive MS, and we markedly improve the quality of their life. We reduce their fatigue. We improve their gait, improve their function. And we confirmed before we started that, yes, they had progressive MS. We've done that in study after study after study. And in the clinics that I ran, where we had people with neurologic disease, psychiatric disease, medical problems, and we used these principles time and time again. People got younger looking, younger appealing. Their medication needs would go down. Quality of life goes up. Fatigue goes down. So clinically, we see it across many disease states. And prospectively, we certainly have demonstrated in clinical studies that this has been very helpful for people with MS.
Yeah. And other conditions as well. You notice tiny little things. I remember when my now wife and I first started kind of getting into this.
Congratulations, by the way. So that's a nice
thank you. Yes. Because you know Allison quite well at this point. Yeah. But when we first got into it, my eyes have been pretty good for a long time. Never needed glasses or anything like that. But she was starting to be right at that point where you kind of need glasses, but she's putting it off. And that went away. Like all of a sudden, she got a little uptick. Everything's a little clearer. And it's been pretty good ever since. And that's, anecdotal, of course. But I've heard it enough times that one example that I've experienced a lot of little things where it's like a lot of corrections are happening when you get out of your own way.
In my clinical team now, we've added ocular studies, and I have one of the best neuro-ophthalmology researchers in the country on my team now. So we're going to have some very, very exciting papers. In my current studies, we're including a very nice, rich battery of ocular studies, because this is the easy way for us to look at the health of the neurons in the nerve cells, in the retina, through these studies. So we are so excited to have Dr. Carden and his team interested in our work and as part of our research lab now.
I love that. Now, here's something that as listeners, especially if they're new to this way of eating, they might be quite surprised to hear that you and I, Terry, despite the fact that we have drastically different physiological makeups, we're in different decades of life, we eat almost exactly the same way. I probably color outside the lines a bit more than you do, but for the most part, our nutrition is very similar, and even the fasting is quite similar as well. So I think a lot of people who are especially, if that's new to them, would be surprised to know that and see that it works for people in vastly different life circumstances.
Correct. And what I try to remind people is that humans, we've been around for a long time, and about 6 million years ago, we deviated from the primates. 2 million years ago, we had our Homo habilis. So now we're in our own genus, and then 250,000 years ago, humans. Over that time, we scattered around the globe, and we ate very different things according to what was available in that locale, and it would fluctuate during the season. But our ancestors figured out that you could eat leaves, vegetation, what was poisonous, what was not, insect grubs, meat, fish, fowl. And so this ancestral health, we do have some radically different diets, and we can thrive. But there are some things that we know if we add them to our diet, they're new foods. They disrupt how the genes are expressed. They disrupt what bacteria live in our bowels, and they kill us. Either very quickly or, a little more gradually. So that's sugar, high glycemic index foods, foods with a lot of lectins in them. And that's what you and I have taken out. What I've done is provide a structure to help people figure out how to be sure that you're getting all the micronutrients your brain and your cells need, because we don't have that connection to our ancestors. So many of us, because we haven't been cooking, we so lost touch with food. We need to provide some guidance. Take this bad stuff out. And here are sort of the proportions to think about when you add in all the good stuff.
Here's a tricky thing, though. In the years since we've talked on this show, there's kind of this popular paleo thing, right? Where at first it was the early adopters, of which you and I were some, but it was a lot of academics and people who were very interested in, typical first adopters or early adopters rather. And now you have a lot of people who have heard about paleo on popular media or something like that, and they think that they're doing it by what? By eating a lot of meat. Usually is eat a lot of meat and don't eat some other things. I forget which ones those. Okay, don't eat bread or gluten or something like that. Eat a lot of meat. I think that's what it is, right?
Yeah.
So
a lot of people do the meat a lot, but that it is not as optimal.
Right.
And it's certainly not as optimal. The other thing that people sometimes do, they can do ketogenic diets, and to do a ketogenic diet well really requires paying attention to your micronutrient needs and how you're going to take care of your microbiome. So
you can't just eat cream cheese by the block every day or take a bunch of keto supplements and be in ketosis.
And I sort of think of this like in a way, the vegan diet. So the people who do vegans can feel great. Raw vegans feel great initially, but they become nutrient depleted over time. Then they become ill, and they can't recognize that it was related to how they interpreted their vegan diet. I see the same thing happening with some keto folks who feel great initially because ketosis does feel great, but over time, because they didn't know how to do it properly, they develop nutritional deficiencies and get into trouble. So that's where I think you and I, again, we're trying to be sure that we have enough education so people know how to do these things properly.
Yeah, so don't just click on the little image you see online and get the first thing. Unfortunately, the marketers have kind of intercepted the academics in the past few years, but the good news is that your TED Talk is still there. The good information is still there too. And once you get your hands on it, you usually can tell the difference, and that's getting better, I think.
Well, it's the beauty and the curse of the internet. There's so much information.
Yeah.
People have to pay attention and have some judgment about the quality of the information.
Right. Now, the ketogenic diet has been something that's just been exploding in popularity recently, which is good and bad. But
very hot.
You, as I understand, dabble in ketosis for about 10 months out of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. So I like during the winter, so I'm still in ketosis. But when my garden starts coming in, I'm going to eat from my garden, and that will include my strawberries and my blueberries and my raspberries and my cherries and the peaches that we have. So we have fruit trees, and I will eat from that, and I'll have all the vegetables during the summer. But still really a low glycemic index diet, still high in fiber, still plenty of good healthy fats. And then as fall comes down, I'm back in ketosis. And I still like to do 24-hour fast, and I like to do 3 days occasionally water only fast, and my blood sugar must still be nice and even because these fasts are very comfortable for me.
Have you found that gets easier over time?
Absolutely.
It does.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I didn't really start adding this fasting component probably until I'd been doing all this for about 8 years.
Right.
And then I started eating once a day. It was just more convenient. And just like, wow, this is really good. And then I decided, well, I'm going to occasionally do a 48-hour fast. And then that was pretty easy. So now I'll occasionally do a 72-hour fast.
Okay. And you mentioned in your book as well doing I think you eat later in the day. Is that a regular thing?
Yeah. So what I do is I just eat after I get home. I make supper. Make myself a membrane smoothie, which is high in fat. And then we have a lot of greens, cooked or raw. And then I have my meat and vegetables. And for my evening dessert, if it's during the summer, I'll have a chia pudding and some berries. If it's during the winter, I'll have chia pudding, or I'll just have coconut milk and tea. And
I noticed you have a lovely wild salad in your book made of greens that you forage for, which where you live are pretty similar to what I was being raised on when my mom was out doing that in New Hampshire. Lamb's quarters and
plantains and dandelions. So yellow rocket, green rockets. So there's lots of edible food if you can find abandoned city lots, if you can get out into your country roads. You just want to be sure that you have a good guide and someone to help teach you how to have this edible food. So you're just getting the good stuff, not the poisonous stuff.
Yes, and be aware that it's definitely nature. This has happened a few times where Mom, bless her heart, there are edible flowers as well, and she loves collecting these wild flowers. And so she'll throw those on our salad, and just absolutely beautiful. We have some pictures up on the blog of when Mom does this, but on multiple occasions, sometimes you get a crunchy flower, which is generally full of bugs of some kind. So it's truly paleo food that we're talking about here. So anyway, wash it. If you don't want to eat bugs, or at least too many of them, you might want to just double check and wash them first. But it is great fun, and it's something when you eat something that was alive 10 minutes before, it is a fundamentally different experience. It really is.
I mean, and that's also the beauty of, we have raised bed gardens, and so it is so fun going out, picking my greens, getting the fresh herbs, and that food is so yummy. My daughter was telling me, because she's moving out on Sunday, that one of the things that she really has enjoyed is being able to go out to our garden and pick the tomatoes and the basil and have fresh salad. Said, Mom, this is unlike any food you can buy anywhere else.
It is, yeah.
That's pretty high praise from a young early millennial.
Right. Well, I remember that, like when we would get hungry as kids, we would just go out to the garden. Like I'd eat a cucumber, or maybe we'd fry up a little bit of squash or something. But usually you could just eat it raw. And we also had fruit trees. We had blueberries, cranberries, pears, apples. It was wild out there, and I think a lot of people do have things like that and don't realize it, even close by. Like I was living when I first moved to Austin. I didn't even know this because it was only a few weeks out of the year, but there was a loquat tree, which are kind of like little apricot peach type things, these yellowish fruits.
That sounds interesting. Yeah.
And we were like, what the heck is this? I took it out, looked it up, and ate a little bit, and then we turned it into a pie, and it was just like the most fun because it's like you're living in an exotic country. Right in your backyard, these wild things that just grow there.
That's right. So as soon as you quit spraying your yard, then it really becomes much more interesting to see what's coming, what's growing, what is wild, what's indigenous, and then learning what you can eat, and just adding it to your salad. And
then you've got another trick that you do with smoothies and salads too, as well, with black pepper. Tell people about that. That was great.
Oh yeah. So black pepper is a historically one of the most commonly used spices. So you have salt, black pepper are probably 1 and 2. And the black pepper has many, many healing attributes. What you have to remember is the reason we use spices is that our ancestors understood that these were superfoods to their clan. Now, mechanistically, we're appreciating that black pepper increases the absorbance of some very helpful things like curcumin or turmeric, ginger, and some of the other healing herbs. It reduces inflammation. It reduces inflammation in the brain, and it reduces oxidative stress.
Yeah.
So it does really great things for us. It is a great addition that amplifies the health benefits of all the other herbs that you may be taking. And plus, it adds a nice little flavor enhancement, even to sweet recipes.
Yeah.
You don't need much, but I just grab a couple kernels, throw them in my smoothie, and it's very good. And of course, lots on everything that I cook.
It'll remind me of something that I guess this is more like PG rated, but I was a touring musician for years, and one of the trade secrets of musicians is that if someone is freaking out on marijuana, then giving them a little bit of black peppercorn almost always solves the problem. They stop freaking out.
Oh, that's interesting.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah, so I don't know the science behind that, but that's kind of like a little secret that all musicians have amongst themselves. But I thought that was really interesting when I saw that in your book, because black pepper, it's been valued more than gold in some cases, right?
Traditionally, it is one of the most valued spices, and it was huge addition to the spice trade. And the reason it's been so valued is it is a nice adjuvant for all of the other spices. So it really crosses literally all of our modern culinary traditions.
One thing people might not realize is that when you go and buy pepper from kind of like the bulk bin or the cheap pepper, that stuff is probably old and doesn't have a lot of the active compounds that you want in it.
Correct.
So you really want to get the good stuff.
Yeah, I would get the peppercorns, get a grinder, and grind it yourself. If you're going to use it for smoothies, you can just put in whole kernels. If you're going to use it in soups and stews, you can just put in the whole kernels. It's a different kind of experience, and once you've been tasting that, likely you'll like, wow, I can really taste the difference. It's more fun. It's worth it.
The ground stuff, the pre-ground stuff, doesn't even really taste like anything. It's just kind of you put a dusting on. You barely even notice it.
It's completely. It's a very different product.
And that's something I think you can take that lesson and apply it to almost anything, any food.
Well, as soon as we grind the spice, it begins to degrade.
Yeah.
So if you're able to get your spices whole and then grind them, they'll be fresher, or get them in smaller quantities from a organic store. But ideally, if you can grind it yourself, it'll be much, much fresher.
So a lot of your followers are called Wahls warriors, and I love that. And a lot of them, though, they may be on disability, or they don't live, in a food mecca where they can just reach over here and get organic tomatoes and reach over here and get fresh grown kale. So what do you do if you're on a budget and you're in a food desert?
Well, I am so grateful for having worked at the VA for 16 years, because in my traumatic brain injury clinic, a lot of those folks didn't have jobs. They were at very tight income, and they had a lot of problems with attention. In my therapeutic lifestyle clinic, again, a lot of the folks sent to me were on disability, very limited financial resources. So I had to figure out how to help them within their realities. So we help them identify what is the food budget, and that includes tobacco, alcohol, everything you get out in the store, buying your food, so that's the grocery bills. Everything you get in a restaurant or a bar that you put in your mouth, that's part of your food bill.
Yep.
So I gather up how much does that cost, and now we help them save money by, you're going to eat at home. We're going to make a menu, have recipes and plan. We'll help you learn how to cook. We'll help you with very simple menus. And if you don't worry about buying organic, don't worry about grass-fed meat, but you are going to have to buy vegetables. You will have to get some meat. It's fine to get canned. Drink the juice if you do. If frozen's available, get that. If you can get stuff at the farmer's market, produce, that's great, but should always be in season. And here's a really lovely trick. Go to the farmer's market at the very end.
That is
and
good
you can
trick.
walk around to the farmers and say, you got anything you don't want to take back, and can let's offer a price. So people can often get tail ends at the end of the farmer's market for very inexpensive.
The ugly vegetables.
The ugly vegetables. The things people don't want to carry back. Or they could go volunteer to help do some work at the farmer's market or on that farm. That can be very helpful.
Yeah, and they'll usually send you off with as many veggies as you can carry.
So what happens is, if you teach people how to cook at home, teach them how to make a menu, that fine, start with conventional food. As they begin to become well, and we talk about, gardening, hunting, fishing, going to, in Iowa, many communities have too many deer. They have controlled hunts, and then have all the venison you want from the city lockers. So in Iowa, access to food is maybe a little bit easier. But I think for most, because I have thousands on the internet that we've made the same observation. When you make the commitment to cook at home, following the protocol, realizing, you don't have to get organic at first, but you have to buy vegetables. People discover that they're saving money. And as I teach them how to eliminate the food waste, because most Americans throw away half of their food, whether they're going to the restaurant or getting the food that they buy at home. So if we teach them how to plan, how to eliminate food waste, how to use all of the food so you aren't throwing away the stems and the ends, they save money. So you can do this on a budget, absolutely. But it does take planning. It does take learning new skills. And really, that's why I wrote the book, because after working with my patients, helping them, that the most powerful thing to do was teach them how to cook and teach them menu planning skills. Then I realized I wanted to do this for the public. So we went back, put in a proposal for a cookbook, and here we are.
Here we are. And it's great. There are a lot of recipes that are similar to what we make often. The chia seed pudding in full-fat coconut milk is an easy win. You do not have to cook to make that.
Very easy. It's just, and if it's too thick, it's like, I put in too much chia, just add a little more water, keep stirring and it thins out. So this is a great one that it's hard to do wrong. You just have to keep adding water to get the texture you want, and then you're good.
We accidentally made one with far too little water in liquid the other day, and we loved it. It was awesome. We made it a little bit cooler, added I think a little stevia or maybe a little fruit with it, and it tasted very close to like tapioca pudding or ice creamy type custardy dessert. Really nice.
It's very nice. That's right. So it's very flexible. You can have it as thick or as thin as you feel like. And
that's the trick. You have to let the little chia seeds absorb the water first, and it makes it much more fun to eat that way, don't you think? Oh God, it's very fun. It's just a lovely finish to a meal, and it feels good. In your, like, going down, you can tell that there's fiber in it. It kind of like gives you a different type of fullness than other food, I find. And your microbiome just loves it. I mean, it is so good for our gut. And for the ladies, the phytoestrogens are very, very helpful. When you're young, if you have too much estrogen because of all the pollution, that helps lower that. When you're more mature, like myself, now we're wanting to maintain brain cell health and bone cell health, the phytoestrogens, which have no impact on my breast tissue, because they're the alpha beta, which do support my brain and bones. You get a very nice effect from these phytoestrogens. So having chia seed pudding, great for my microbiome, great for my gene expression, and great for bone health, brain health, and for many young women having lots of dysmenorrhea, excess estrogen,
Adding chia seed pudding often helps quiet that heavy menstrual cramping and their dysmenorrhea.
Yeah.
So this is great on both ends of the female spectrum.
A health nut staple.
Yeah, it should be. Absolutely should be.
I think so too. You mentioned a few other things that I'd like to bring up here. We mentioned the popular paleo thing that's kind of taken over in the past few years, but at its roots, what it really means is you should be eating nose to tail. We should be eating in a different way than by default you're eating in America these days, right? So let's remind people a little bit about the nose to tail eating, the bone marrow, the bone broth, things like that I know you and I are eating on a weekly basis that many others aren't.
Yeah, absolutely. So when animals are harvested, slaughtered, about 38% to 40% of the carcass would be what we'd consider waste material, offal. Our ancestors would not have possibly thrown that away. Mm-hmm. They would have consumed all of that. And so liver, I'm a huge fan of liver, and I like to have people have that once a week because of all the great nutrition that you get there. But, the bone marrow, again, great nutrition. The bone marrow has a lot of DHA, which is, we think, why we're able to grow bigger brains. So having bone marrow, just roasting bone marrow, that is a great, great meal. The bone broth is rich in glycine and proline. Now, those amino acids are unique to bone broth. When you eat muscle, you have a lot of methionine. If you have a diet high in methionine that's not balanced with the proline and the glycine, you turn on mammalian targeted rapamycin and you increase your risk of tumors and cancers and probably also cardiovascular disease.
Yeah.
If you have a lot of bone broth and moderate amounts of meat, the level of meat that I advocate, and I've forgotten what your policy is there,
not much,
but probably close to mine, that the mammalian targeted rapamycin is not overstimulated. Mm-hmm. So our versions of the paleo diet are way safer than those folks who have the glorification of meat and hate all vegetables and are afraid of fat.
Yeah.
Then that ramps up the mammalian targeted rapamycin and does put you at risk for cardiovascular disease and tumors, cancers as well.
Right. Even if you look great in the short term.
You look great in the short term, but it will come back to bite you.
Yeah, it's so interesting because you see some people, or at least I've worked around some people who are leaning down for competitions or something like that, bodybuilding or fitness competitions, and you see they're on the 300 grams of protein a day diet or something like that. That's it. Water and protein. And though you can lean down that way, it's why don't you explain a little bit more what the implications might be years later?
Well, if you don't have vegetables, that's going to have an impact on which genes are expressed and which genes are silenced. If you don't have, so we have that issue. And the next issue, I'm thinking about the microbiome. We can see, because our bugs are every 20 minutes dividing, they respond very quickly to a change in diet. So if I eat a protein-only meal, I have a different microbiome when you analyze my poop, and you can see that within 24 hours. And so if I keep doing a poop sample every day, so we let that wash out, and then you give me a plant-only diet, and again, within 24 hours, a very different looking microbiome than when I was eating only meat.
Yeah.
And we have increasing recognition that the bacteria in our bowels run our biochemistry with us. Our liver filters out the harmful biochemistry, but the stuff we need to have our brain work well, have our blood vessels work well, have our hormones balanced, come through into our bloodstream.
Yeah.
If we are missing those microbes because we have no plants in our diet, we're missing some of the process of how we run our biochemistry.
Yeah.
And I think that's why diets that are high in fruits and vegetables and low glycemic index diet have a better. So that is lower all-cause mortality, lower cause cardiovascular, lower stroke risk, lower cancer risk, lower autoimmune risk, lower mental health risk. So long-term, high meat diets don't have that profile.
Yeah. And so a lot of people make that mistake of assuming that appearance implies health.
Yeah.
That's a big mistake to make.
It certainly can be. The other comment I did want to add, we do have a couple of ancestral societies that did eat meat only for about 10 months out of the year. That would have been our Inuit folks. But they were eating raw meat, raw fish, fermented stink fins, fermented food. So lots and lots of fermented food. So it got a lot of bacterials there. And this is raw, wild.
Yeah.
The stuff our friends are eating is not wild. It's not raw. And that changes the nutrient profile. You and I can't tell people, go eat raw meats. Huge public health consequence. That's just not possible. Right. Maybe if you're growing your own in very meticulous way of harvesting. Sure. But I mean, as a physician, I can't recommend that. But when people are saying that you can be healthy on a meat-only diet, the only societies that have verified that you can were eating a very different food product than what people are eating here. Right. And when you cook meats, you lose the water-soluble vitamins. You change the nutrient profile than when you have it raw. And when you raise animals in confinement lots, you have a very different nutrition profile than when it's wild.
And even just cooking it I think it increases our absorption of calories by something like 30% when you cook meats and even some vegetables as well. So it's a different diet. When some people use that example, it'd be like, I eat meat all day and this is why it's healthy. It's not quite accurate. No. They aren't describing. It's not what our Inuit friends would be doing. Right. Yeah. Exactly. Now let's talk a little bit more about eating well on a budget, because that has come up so much recently. Yeah. Are there any other little things that you've seen really work for people where they, and I guess the evidence for that would be that they're still doing it years later? Yeah. So I do talk to people about, can they afford meat? How much meat can they afford? And I do help people have some meatless meals using legumes and gluten-free grains, unless they have rheumatoid arthritis. Those folks we have to do differently. Yeah. And we stress you got to cook at home and figure out how to use every single thing so there's no waste. So now we're talking about menu planning, shopping lists, and some discipline around food. Yeah. And if I can get those skills into people, they thrive. They do really very, very well. Yeah. The other thing that I have to do, that or at least is associated with success, when the family does this together. If you get the kids helping with the meal prep, the shopping, the menu planning, they're going to help eat the food. Yeah. The other thing I do is you always have one serving. If you say yuck, you get a second serving. And so everything in our house was always good. Was always good. Now, some things were great, but everything was always good. Yeah. And you never heard yuck. Right. That's fantastic. And I unfortunately don't know them personally yet, but you have such a wonderful, beautiful family. And before this interview, I was watching your son, Zach, making the rounds on talk shows. On the Ellen Show, you made a little cameo there. Oh, yeah. You've raised such a strong family with incredible values, and it seems to me that at least Zach, when I was seeing him speak, so advanced, so mature, so independent. That's something that a lot of people who listen are struggling to raise their kids with the right habits, especially in the kitchen. But let's just start there. How did you raise such incredible kids starting in the kitchen? We gave them chores. So, and it was actually very helpful. As I became more disabled, my kids had to do more. Okay. And so, ages 8 and 11, my kids were having to help us run our daily life, set the table, clear the table. And so, we, again, starting in junior high, they had to help prepare a meal. So one meal a week, it was cool. Theirs to prepare. Yeah. And so we would help them pick out the recipes and be sort of their sous chef. But they prepared those meals. And then as, I really understood my health needs, and we focused the whole family on eating to support me. Again, those kids were there helping with the meals, helping with the change, and seeing the change in my health. And then when I convinced them to follow the gluten-free, dairy-free diet all the time for themselves,
they both noticed that their migraines went away, their asthma went away,
wow. Yeah.
their acne cleared up, and so they began to see the benefit. Now, Zeb had a much bigger problem with headaches and migraines, so she got to have real immediate feedback. My son had some acne, mild asthma, and so he doesn't have quite a strong, compelling need as Zeb and I have to follow the diet very meticulously.
That makes sense.
But he can tell, and you can see it on his face.
Really?
If he's got a little acne on the face, like, yep, you went out and had some beer, didn't you?
That would be one of the problems of having you as a mom, I think, is that you're just too smart and you know too much. That's just asking for trouble. But the good thing is I think he is too. So I'm sure you have your hands full.
They're doing well. They're doing well, doing really well. And Zeb graduated with a BFA in painting, and
oh wow!
So she is just getting ready to launch, and she's working on some freelance stuff. So she has a couple of ideas that she's pitching to me. And one of them, actually, which I'm really pretty interested in, was writing and illustrating a children's book talking about a family that adopts the Wahls Protocol and how they're helped and how to do that. So I'm sending a note out trying to understand how much interest there is. And so that may be a project that will be that my daughter is excited about doing.
Oh, that's
and that
so great.
I think will be pretty fun.
You are a busy family, my Lord.
Well, we like to change the world in favorable ways.
Yeah, I love it. Well, we're just about out of time, but let's talk about what you're doing now to change the world. You have a few irons in the fire, so to speak. So let's catch everyone up.
So we have a research program, a new program funded by the National MS Society. And so we'll show you have the links so people can see if they're eligible for that. There are a couple partnerships we have with Chia University for some research programs they're doing, which they've included the Wahls diet in that. So I'm very excited about that. I have a seminar that I do every summer where people come hang out with us for 4 days and learn how to implement the protocol.
Yeah.
And we are now also offering the total Wahls Protocol immersion program, where people can come spend 4 days in a very, very small group where we will really live the protocol. We'll teach you how to cook, the stress-reducing activities, movement activities. This will be, and you get to have a one-on-one medical appointment with me that will review your history, functional medicine exam, what functional medicine testing might be useful, and design a dietary approach specific to you in your health issues. So I'm really excited about offering that. And I think, again, that'll be transformative, very small group. So there's a support group, and we'll follow those folks for the next 6 months to get them well launched. Yeah. So great things are happening. I am excited to have this little tiny functional medicine practice. I'm excited to have more time for my online business and seminar, and to have the research program going. Oh, and one more thing I didn't mention. We have a proposal to take my program and apply it to ALS patients. And the reason I have the chance to put this together is I've had so many folks with ALS reach out to tell me that they've adopted the diet and they're doing way better. And of course, I tell them, please see a functional medicine doc right away in addition. And we've had a couple individuals who've had such great success that they're offering to help us try and secure funding or sufficient funding so we could launch this ALS pilot study.
Very cool.
Ever the optimist, I'm very hopeful that by this time next year we'll have that funding and we'll be ready to be recruiting.
Yeah, and then some, I'm sure.
And then some.
Well, you're rocking it, Terry, and it's so great to keep up with you and all of these incredible bits of work that you're doing in so many different realms. But I'm very honored to have you on the show once again. You're welcome anytime, and thanks again for coming on.
Such a pleasure.
Before you go, don't forget to grab your listener discount on our 30-day fat loss plan. In this plan, we share 30 days of mouth-watering wild diet meal plans that are designed to help you drop fat with real food. The meal plans are paleo-friendly, easy to make, and literally the meals that my wife Allison and I eat just about every day and night to stay lean, fit, and happy. In the program, you'll get the most effective method of meal and nutrient timing to best stimulate fat loss and muscle recovery, the truth about how much protein you really need for your body type, 30 days of specific healthy fat-burning meal plans as a done-for-you nutrition strategy, and tons more. If you check it out today, you'll even get a listener discount. All you have to do is type in fatburningman.com/30 days. That's the number 30, DAYS. Once again, that's fatburningman.com/30 days. I'll see you there. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Fat Burning Man. If you liked it, don't forget to hit the subscribe button on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, the podcast app, or wherever else you might be listening to or watching this show. Got a second? Please leave me a quick review on iTunes. I always love hearing from you, and if you think someone else might like and benefit from this free show, please take a second to share it with a friend or with a family member. You can get in touch with me on Twitter at FatBurnMan and Facebook by typing in Abel James or Fat Burning Man. Drop me a line anytime. Did you know that I've recorded over 150 episodes of Fat Burning Man, winning 4 awards in independent media and hitting #1 in more than 8 countries? And here's some more good news. You can download and listen to every single episode for free. All you have to do is type in fatburningman.com. I'll give you a second to type it in, fatburningman.com. And you'll get all the show notes in video and audio versions for all the past episodes of Fat Burning Man. Better yet, enter your best email at fatburningman.com, sign up for my newsletter, and I'll even send you a quick start guide to start burning fat right now and a few of our ridiculously tasty recipes as a special thanks for signing up. Once again, just go to fatburningman.com right now, enter your best email to get your free fat burning download straight to your inbox, and make sure that you never miss a show again. This is Abel James signing off. Thanks so much for listening, and have a great week.
It's called, it's 2 herbs called Shanjiang Wu Mei, and they're put together. These are digestive herbs. So if they're eating something that's oily, it helps the kids to break down the fats. And there have been studies on it in Japan that it actually helps to break down.